When the good Lord made Leapin Larry Levin, he must have thrown away the mold. Larry is a real character with a very positive outlook on life. And while his first exposure to model trains was very typical, his approach to modeling and to life is not, as you'll see later. Where did it all start?
In 1955 in Denison, Texas, where my father got me my first Lionel train, and it was a GG1 with the whole set. He got it from Jackson County hardware store in Denison, and I was about 6 years old when I got it, and that was just fantastic. My dad was a doctor. He adopted me when I was 6 weeks old. I don't know my real parents, but he was my dad, and he was a trained man and a doctor, and I was just a little kid with a lot of fun. And I grew up about 15 minutes from the MKT train yards. So that's where we played, in the MKT train yards in Denison, Texas.
From the time Larry was 6 years old, he enjoyed playing with trains with his dad. But when Larry was 11, everything changed.
I had fun with trains when I was a little boy, as my dad bought them for me. But my dad died when I was 11 years old. And when he died, my mother didn't have money. My sister, who was adopted too, she and I were separated for about a year while Mother got over his passing away. And we lived in St. Louis, near St. Louis, in a town called Flora, Illinois, where my grandpa raised me. And I told my grandpa when I was 11, going on 12, I really want a Lionel train. He said, "No, Larry boy, you can't afford them." I said, "Well, I understand that." Well, a lady named Nell Hannah, who lived next door to him, saw me, and she helped me grow up. She took me to a man's house named Galen Borders, and when I went into Galen Borders' basement, I saw an American Flyer Railroad. I said, at age 12, one day I'm going to build a railroad. It may not be as good as his, may not be as big, but I will have a railroad.
It took a while, but Larry finally achieved his goal and now has a marvelous railroad. This layout traces its beginnings all the way back to 1996.
Sue and I built the house in 1996, moved in October, and in 2000 I started this train layout. My first layout was the G gauge that goes around my walls, and that was an anniversary present that my wife gave me for our first anniversary. But that's where we began, is in October of '96 when we moved into this house.
Larry has designed a lot of operation into this layout. A roundhouse and turntable are always a center of attention, and Larry has built his at the best spot in the house to watch the action.
Everybody that's in the hobby has different interests. Well, my interests are running trains, having fun with them, and if you're going to have a steam train, you need a turntable and a roundhouse. When we back out of the roundhouse, we pull onto the turntable. We turn the engine in such a way as to back it into the water tower so we can fill it up with water. Then we back over to the coaling station and fill it with coal. And then we go on to the main line and couple up to the train. And once we couple up, the trains just run and run and run.
And run they do, on several different kinds of track.
So I went with Atlas O track, then I coupled it with Ross Custom track, and between Ross, Atlas, Gargraves, and some K-Line 027, I put a layout together.
As for the trains themselves,
it's all legacy, it's all Lionel, and it's lots of fun.
Larry runs everything on his layout with the Legacy remote. He turns track power on and off, throws switches, runs accessories, and of course runs the trains. Larry's layout also has a cleverly hidden helix inside of each of the mountains.
The reason for the helix is it lets me have 4 levels of level train. I think these Pullmore motors, or these engines with the rubber tires, they have a tendency when you're going up a hill to loosen. And I decided that if I run trains on a level playing field, I don't have to worry about all that. So once a train gets to its level, it's on a straight level, I have no problem.
Larry's nickname is Leapin' Larry, and he has named his railroad Leapin' Larry's Looney Lines. There's a fascinating story behind his nickname.
Leapin' Larry comes from the JCs. I was in the Junior Chamber of Commerce in Dixon, Tennessee for about 10 years. And I wound up being president of that chapter. And we had a tour called the Haunted House Tour, where we would bring all the people in and we would sell them tickets and they would see the haunted house. And we took the funds and made Christmas for the underprivileged available. We would give each child about $50 and let them spend it the way they wanted. And then Walmart would also chip in with us and they double the money, so each kid had a good Christmas. Well, Leapin' Larry comes in because the haunted house only raised $200 and we had 150 kids to take. So I ran another project that raised over $3,000 in a weekend, and they said, "You are Leapin' Larry. You put it together." People kind of laugh at it, but you know, if you have a nickname, and in the business that I'm in, I sell cars, I sell Honda, people remember you. It's kind of a catchy name, and I did songs with it when I started the car business. I've done everything with Leapin' Larry as a background for me.
The railroad's name, Leapin' Larry's Looney Lines, is just a further extension of Larry's full-of-fun outlook on life. He once jokingly referred to something he did on his layout as Looney, and the name stuck. But while the name may sound a little, well, loony, the railroad itself is very well done with a lot of action. As you can see, Larry's layout is fully scenic, and that leads to another interesting story of friendship.
The scenery on the layout has been done by Ray and Louise Ward. They came in and shared their wealth with me. This is a work of art, and it's just a love of the hobby. And the people are very Christian. They believe in God, and it's just a wonderful intermingling of minds that we have got along together and worked together to produce this layout.
Working together, Larry, Ray, and Louise certainly did produce a beautiful O-gauge layout. But building, operating, and sharing an O-gauge layout can have far-reaching effects beyond just running trains by yourself in the basement.
This hobby does a lot for Larry Levin in the way of friends. I have met so many train friends. We have a group in Evansville with Jim Bingard and Earl Robertson, and down in Hallsville, Kentucky, Johnny Dawson, and we have friends in Madisonville, Rich Hain. We call Rich Hain the Madisonville Shops because he fixes all these trains. We have friends in Nashville, we have friends in Knoxville and Memphis, all over, and we run into each other at train shows, and a lot of them come to the house here for good fellowship and fun. Never met anybody in the hobby that wasn't a good person. I like to share it. I like to involve those folks in my layout with me. If I had this layout down here and didn't share it with anybody, what good would it be?
And that, in a nutshell, is Leapin Larry's philosophy about this hobby, sharing his layout and his passion. He's proud of his involvement in the hobby, and he's not shy about sharing his interests with others.
And where I work, everybody knows my hobby. They'll bring me a trinket to put on my layout, or they'll talk about trains with me. And everybody I have met has been really fun to be with. The magazines, the friendship, the TCA meets, the LCCA meets, all of the clubs. It's just a fun world to live in.